He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. All men can see these tactics whereby I conquer, but what none can see is the strategy out of which victory is evolved. To fight and conquer in all our battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look on them as your own beloved sons, and they will stand by you even unto death. He who is prudent and lies in wait for an enemy who is not, will be victorious. The art of war teaches us to rely not on the likelihood of the enemy's not coming, but on our own readiness to receive him. Not on the chance of his not attacking, but rather on the fact that we have made our position unassailable. A good commander is benevolent and unconcerned with fame. Confront them with annihilation, and they will then survive. Plunge them into a deadly situation, and they will then live. When people fall into danger, they are then able to strive for victory. The enlightened ruler is heedful, and the good general full of caution. The general who advances without coveting fame and retreats without fearing disgrace, whose only thought is to protect his country and do good service for his sovereign, is the jewel of the kingdom. There has never been a protracted war from which a country has benefited. For to win 100 victories in 100 battles is not the acme of skill. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. Hence the saying, if you know the enemy and you know yourself, your victory will not stand in doubt. If you know heaven and you know earth, you may make your victory complete. When envoys are sent with compliments in their mouths, it is a sign that the enemy wishes for a truce. If fighting is sure to result in victory, then you must fight, even though the ruler forbid it. If fighting will not result in victory, then you must not fight even at the ruler's bidding. Know your enemy and know yourself, and you can fight 100 battles without disaster. The opportunity to secure ourselves against defeat lies in our own hands, but the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy himself. The general who wins the battle makes many calculations in his temple before the battle is fought. The general who loses makes but few calculations beforehand. To see victory only when it is within the ken of the common herd is not the acme of excellence. The quality of decision is like the well-timed swoop of a falcon, which enables it to strike and destroy its victim. Secret operations are essential in war. Upon them the army rallies to make its every move. Prohibit the taking of omens, and do away with superstitious doubts. Then, until death itself comes, no calamity need be feared. Thus it is that in war the victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won, whereas he who is destined to defeat first fights and afterwards looks for victory. Of all those in the army close to the commander, none is more intimate than the secret agent. Of all rewards, none more liberal than those given to secret agents. Of all matters, none is more confidential than those relating to secret operations. Above all things, reverence yourself. Concern should drive us into action and not into depression. No man is free who cannot control himself. There is a good principle which created order, light, and man, and an evil principle which created chaos, darkness, and woman. Friends are as companions on a journey, who ought to aid each other to persevere in the road to a happier life. As long as man continues to be the ruthless destroyer of lower living beings, he will never know health or peace. For as long as men massacre animals, they will kill each other. There is geometry in the humming of the strings. There is music in the spacing of the spheres. The oldest, shortest words yes and no are those which require the most thought. Above the cloud with its shadow is the star with its light. Above all things reverence thyself. It is better whether to be silent or to say things of more value than silence. Sooner throw a pearl at hazard than an idle or useless word. And do not say a little in many words, but a great deal in a few. Strength of mind rests in sobriety, for this keeps your reason unclouded by passion. Begin thus from the first act, and proceed. And, in conclusion, at the ill which thou hast done, be troubled, and rejoice for the good. The most momentous thing in human life is the art of winning the soul to good or evil. As soon as laws are necessary for men, they are no longer fit for freedom. Anger begins with folly and ends with repentance. Beings have a soul. Choose rather to be strong of soul than strong of body. No one is free who has not obtained the empire of himself. As long as man continues to be the ruthless destroyer of lower living beings, he will never know health or peace. For as long as men massacre animals, they will kill each other. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. Love and work, work and love, that's all there is. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. A civilization which leaves so large a number of its participants unsatisfied and drives them into revolt neither has nor deserves the prospect of a lasting existence. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. The first human who hurled an insult instead of a stone was the founder of civilization. The mind is like an iceberg. It floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. Flowers are restful to look at. They have neither emotions nor conflicts. Whoever loves becomes humble. Those who love have, so to speak, pawned a part of their narcissism. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. What a distressing contrast there is between the radiant intelligence of the child and the feeble mentality of the average adult. What we call happiness in the strictest sense comes from the preferably sudden satisfaction of needs which have been dammed up to a high degree. Every normal person, in fact, is only normal on the average. His ego approximates to that of the psychotic in some part or other and to a greater or lesser extent. A man who has been the indisputable favorite of his mother keeps for life the feeling of a conqueror. Men are strong so long as they represent a strong idea. They become powerless when they oppose it. Man has, as it were, become a kind of prosthetic god. When he puts on all his auxiliary organs, he is truly magnificent. But those organs have not grown on him and they still give him much trouble at times. Civilized society is perpetually menaced with disintegration through this primary hostility of men towards one another. Obviously, one must hold oneself responsible for the evil impulses of one's dreams. In what other way can one deal with them? unless the content of the dream, rightly understood, is inspired by alien spirits. It is part of my own being. Neurotics complain of their illness, but they make the most of it. And when it comes to talking it away from them, they will defend it like a lioness her young. Just as a cautious businessman avoids investing all his capital in one concern, so wisdom would probably admonish us also not to anticipate all our happiness from one quarter alone. It is impossible to overlook the extent to which civilization is built upon a renunciation of instinct. The doctor should be opaque to his patients and, like a mirror, should show them nothing but what is shown to him. Civilization began the first time an angry person cast a word instead of a rock. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is what does a woman want? I have found little that is good about human beings on the whole. In my experience, most of them are trash. No matter whether they publicly subscribe to this or that ethical doctrine or to none at all. That is something that you cannot say aloud, or perhaps even think. If a man has been his mother's undisputed darling, he retains throughout life the triumphant feeling, the confidence in success, which not seldom brings actual success along with it. The conscious mind may be compared to a fountain playing in the sun and falling back into the great subterranean pool of subconscious from which it rises. He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips. Betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. A man should not strive to eliminate his complexes, but to get into accord with them. They are legitimately what directs his conduct in the world. The act of birth is the first experience of anxiety, and thus the source and prototype of the affect of anxiety. Modern science says, the sun is the past, the earth is the present, the moon is the future. From an incandescent mass we have originated, and into a frozen mass we shall turn. Merciless is the law of nature, and rapidly and irresistibly we are drawn to our doom. Let the future tell the truth, and evaluate each one according to his work and accomplishments. The present is theirs. The future, for which I have really worked, is mine. It is paradoxical, yet true, to say that the more we know, the more ignorant we become in the absolute sense. For it is only through enlightenment that we become conscious of our limitations. Precisely one of the most gratifying results of intellectual evolution is the continuous opening up of new and greater prospects. Every living being is an engine geared to the wheelwork of the universe, though seemingly affected only by its immediate surrounding. The sphere of external influence extends to infinite distance. I do not think there is any thrill that can go through the human heart like that felt by the inventor as he sees some creation of the brain unfolding to success. Such emotions make a man forget food, sleep, friends, love, everything. The scientists of today think deeply instead of clearly. One must be sane to think clearly, but one can think deeply and be quite insane. As in nature, all is ebb and tide, all is wave motion. So it seems that in all branches of industry, alternating currents to electric wave motion will have the sway. As in nature, all is ebb and tide, all is wave motion. So it seems that in all branches of industry, alternating currents to electric wave motion will have the sway. The scientific man does not aim at an immediate result. He does not expect that his advanced ideas will be readily taken up. His work is like that of the planter for the future. His duty is to lay the foundation for those who are to come and point the way. The year 2100 will see eugenics universally established. In past ages, the law governing the survival of the fittest roughly weeded out the less desirable strains. Then man's new sense of pity began to interfere with the ruthless workings of nature. As a result, we continue to keep alive and to breed the unfit. Electrical science has revealed to us the true nature of light, has provided us with innumerable appliances and instruments of precision, and has thereby vastly added to the exactness of our knowledge. The harness of waterfalls is the most economical method known for drawing energy from the sun. The history of science shows that theories are perishable. With every new truth that is revealed, we get a better understanding of nature, and our conceptions and views are modified. I do not think you can name many great inventions that have been made by married men. Our virtues and our failings are inseparable, like force and matter. When they separate, man is no more. Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation, and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality. In the 21st century, the robot will take the place which slave labor occupied in ancient civilization. The human being is a self-propelled automaton entirely under the control of external influences. Willful and predetermined though they appear, his actions are governed not from within, but from without. He is like a float tossed about by the waves of a turbulent sea. The spread of civilization may be likened to a fire. First, a feeble spark. Next, a flickering flame, then a mighty blaze, ever increasing in speed and power. It seems that I have always been ahead of my time. I had to wait 19 years before Niagara was harnessed by my system, 15 years before the basic inventions for wireless which I gave to the world in 1893 were applied universally. The feeling is constantly growing on me that I had been the first to hear the greeting of one planet to another. The universal utilization of water power and its long-distance transmission will supply every household with cheap power and will dispense with the necessity of burning fuel, the struggle for existence being lessened. There should be development along ideal rather than material lines. Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. I see it all perfectly. There are two possible situations. One can either do this or that. My honest opinion and my friendly advice is this: do it or do not do it, you will regret both. People demand freedom of speech as a compensation for the freedom of thought which they seldom use. Boredom is the root of all evil, the despairing refusal to be oneself. Listen to the cry of a woman in labor, the hour of giving birth. Look at the dying man struggle at his last extremity. and then tell me whether something that begins and ends thus could be intended for enjoyment. What is a poet? An unhappy person who conceals profound anguish in his heart, but whose lips are so formed that as sighs and cries pass over them, they sound like beautiful music. God creates out of nothing. Wonderful, you say. Yes, to be sure. But he does what is still more wonderful. He makes saints out of sinners. The function of prayer is not to influence God, but rather to change the nature of the one who prays. The truth is a snare. You cannot have it without being caught. You cannot have the truth in such a way that you catch it, but only in such a way that it catches you. Marriage brings one into fatal connection with custom and tradition, and traditions and customs are like the wind and weather, altogether incalculable. A man who as a physical being is always turned toward the outside, thinking that his happiness lies outside him, finally turns inward and discovers that the source is within him. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. The highest and most beautiful things in life are not to be heard about, nor read about, nor seen, but, if one will, are to be lived. Faith is the highest passion in a human being. Many in every generation may not come that far, but none comes further. People understand me so poorly that they don't even understand my complaint about them not understanding me. It belongs to the imperfection of everything human that man can only attain his desire by passing through its opposite. How absurd men are! They never use the liberties they have. They demand those they do not have. They have freedom of thought. They demand freedom of speech. People commonly travel the world over to see rivers and mountains, new stars, garish birds, freak fish, grotesque breeds of human. They fall into an animal stupor that gapes at existence, and they think they have seen something. Since my earliest childhood, a barb of sorrow has lodged in my heart. As long as it stays, I am ironic. If it is pulled out, I shall die. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Even happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness. It is far better take things as they come along with patience and equanimity. The health theme and us not torture others. Generally, it is the tortured who turn into torturers. As far as we can discern, the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. One looks back with appreciation to the brilliant teachers, but with gratitude to those who touch our human feelings. The curriculum is so much necessary.